Guys, welcome back to Iris After Hours, overlooking the magnificent city of Jerusalem. And I'm here with Chris Mitchell, an old friend, an amazing man of God, and our foreign correspondent for CBN. For how many years, Chris, have you been?
I've been with CBN almost 30. Next March will be 30. I've been here in Jerusalem 18.
18 years.
And Nathan, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you.
It's been too long.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been like 6 years.
Yeah, I know. And Sarah is pregnant?
Yes.
And this will be your third child?
Yes. No, fourth.
Fourth. Wow.
Fourth boy.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, Chris, oh my gosh, what can we talk about? There's so much to talk about. My first memory of you is with Heidi. We came here and you grabbed us and you gave us this. We had like half an hour before Heidi had to catch a plane.
Yeah.
And you gave us a whirlwind tour. You took us to the Garden of Gethsemane. It was closed, but you got us through the gate. We went in to the Garden of Gethsemane and you took us up to that Mount of Olives and oh my gosh.
It was a special moment because I remember that maybe you or maybe Heidi at that time hadn't seen some of these places.
We hadn't.
Yeah, and it was a privilege for me, and it is a privilege in many instances when people are here for the first time, to take them around to spots that are here in the neighborhood. And I don't mean that in a trivial way.
No, but
because
it's
this
true.
is just an amazing neighborhood. And when you know your way around, it's easy to take people. It's just like when where you grew up. You know where things go. You know how to get there. And so it's a privilege to be able to show people the Mount of Olives, that view, which is just so spectacular. The Garden of Gethsemane and things like that. So it was a real honor for me to be with you and Heidi. And I wanted to say, what a blessing it has been, the times that I've been down in Mozambique with Iris Ministries. It's just an extraordinary extension of God's love to the people of Mozambique and the people of Africa and the people around the world for that matter.
Wow.
Just so impressed by Heidi and her love and her stopping for the one. And I remember seeing that in action.
Yes.
Down in Mozambique, there was an open air meeting, lots of worship and song. But there was somebody who was going to speak who didn't come, and she took over and she spoke. And so I remember that just remarkably, how she just poured herself out, and not only being up on the stage, but I remember sitting her down in the dirt with some of the people there in Mozambique, praying for a lady to receive her sight, praying for people to receive their hearing. Just the love of God that just is so expressed through Heidi and Roland and the team of Iris Ministries, yourself. It's just a remarkable ministry. I love you guys. I love what you do. It's really special.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
I know it is. It's amazing, isn't it? To have the premise of the ministry being love and to stop and to the presence of God and the beauty of God, of Him and His presence, to the intimacy unto fruitfulness.
Exactly.
Is what Heidi always talks about. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, and one other memory I have, in fact, this was one of the first times I saw Heidi, was that we were coming down to do a story. Jill Austin, you remember, was down there. And we came, I believe it was to Pemba.
Yes.
And we came to the beach where they're doing a baptism. And you had, maybe dozens of people lined up for baptisms. They were going into the water. Heidi was there with another pastor baptizing them. A lot of the people were getting baptized and coming up speaking in tongues.
Wow.
And it was just extraordinary. And Jill Austin, a dear friend of Heidi's, and I know you, and just a wonderful lady who's gone on to be with the Lord. Just an extraordinary time of just seeing the book of Acts unfolding before your very eyes.
Oh no, it's crazy. Huh? So did you go with CBN?
I did. Yeah, we went with CBN. We went there to do story on the revival happening down there. I brought my daughter Kathleen at the time.
That's
and
right.
Later on, I came down and went with my other daughter Grace to just see Love in Action. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you get to travel much?
Sometimes we get to travel here in the around this area.
Yeah.
We primarily stay in Israel because so much happens here in Jerusalem and in the country. But we do travel in the region. I'll be traveling to one of the Gulf states in just a couple of days.
Oh, cool. For a story?
For a story, yeah. Evangelical leaders are meeting with members of a Gulf country there, and that's one thing. We've been to northern Iraq many times, or several times, because of ISIS coming in the summer of 2014 when they took over parts of Syria, northern Iraq, and they really threatened
So
many.
you went?
Oh yeah, we went
Oh
there.
my
And
gosh, was that scary? I mean, was it like dangerous?
potentially.
Yeah.
The very first time we were there, we were with a local pastor he was our driver, he was our tour guide, he was our translator, he was our prayer partner. And we got to this refugee camp that really thousands of people had just got there. And he told me that about 15 minutes drive down that road was ISIS. And so that was a bit
It was,
disconcerting, I guess, or it makes
yeah,
you
because
wonder.
that's that in that time. That's when they were
It
powerful.
was,
They were
exactly.
armed and they were ready and they were on the move.
Yeah, and there were times when we were driving on some roads, and he would just say, on the other side of that mountain, that's where they are. And then at night, sometimes it was a bit disconcerting because, at night, if you took the wrong turn, you'd end up in the wrong village or town. And many of these roads didn't have many lights, so you just wondered, you were praying. We prayed a lot that we went to the right place. But that, Nathan, it really gripped my heart because many of our brothers and sisters had to flee for their very lives, and they were given 4 choices by ISIS. They could stay, but they would have to pay what's called the jizya tax for non-Muslims. They could leave their homes, they had lived in for years or generations. They could convert to Islam, or they could die by the sword. And so we just had, face-to-face meetings with many of these people and understood the price they paid for their faith. And our heart was to be able to get their story out, to tell people around the world what was happening to them so people could pray and people could act and speak up on their behalf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. So, Chris, how important is your faith in telling stories like this? What's the, I don't know, what's the driving motivation behind what you do in terms of your faith?
Yeah, well, my faith is indispensable to what I do. I think my faith, my relationship with the Lord got me here in the first place.
Yeah, right. Tell us that story.
Well, back in 1996, I came into Jerusalem in Israel for the very first time, and
on a job, or were you?
Yeah. It was CBN, a CBN assignment. We had to do 5 stories for upcoming 700 Club shows.
Was CBN already here?
CBN, no, not the way it is now.
Okay.
They had a reporter that they would do stories every once in a while, but we came here to do stories for the 700 Club, which is CBN's main program. It goes coast to coast in the U.S. and other parts of the world. And so when I came here for the very first time, I fell in love with Jerusalem. I fell in love with the land.
It's not hard to do, is it?
No.
It happened to Sarah and I.
It does,
Same thing with you that time. Bang, we were gone.
Yeah. And
it's dangerous. It's dangerous to visit this place, isn't it?
Well, it can be. It can change your life.
Yeah.
It's like
you get a love for this place.
Spiritual demarcation line.
My wife, I couldn't believe my wife just fell in love with this place. She wants to come back here every year. That's what she wants to do.
Yeah, well, it does do that. And that's how I felt. And I my one regret was that Liz, my wife, and our 3 children weren't with me. Not realizing that 4 years later, we would all be here.
Oh, my gosh.
And I really felt as I was driving around, and I remember this in the Jordan Valley, I felt like the Lord was this proud landowner, and he was like showing me his land. This is his land. It's his promised land.
Yeah.
And that was special. So, as I said, the one regret that it was Liz and the kids weren't with me, but I came back in 1997, again on assignment with CBN, and I went to a meeting with Derek Prince, the famous Bible teacher.
He was still alive back then.
Yeah, he was still alive back then.
Derek Prince is a legend, isn't he?
He really is.
He's a father of like a lot of the modern,
for sure,
prophetic movement.
Exactly, and he related a story back in 1948. He was in the British Army. He was going to get.
My gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. He served in World War II, I believe, in North Africa. So in 1948, he was going to get out of the British Army. I hope I have my dates right, but he was talking to an elderly Jewish woman, and he related this story, and he was telling her he wanted to live in Jerusalem. And this lady said to him, well, Derek, you don't choose Jerusalem. Jerusalem chooses you. And when he said those words, it just pierced my heart.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was... So I thought, Lord, are you choosing us for Jerusalem? And I went back, and then the very next year, just before I came back here on my 3rd assignment with CBN, my boss sent out an email asking for volunteers to start a news bureau here in Jerusalem.
No.
Yeah, and so when so looking back to what happened, what Derek Prince said, and literally when I saw this email, I pushed myself away from the computer screen and just realizing this was kind of a sacred moment, and that is just God's call in our life.
Because it's huge impact.
Oh,
I mean, that's
yeah,
shifting
yeah,
countries.
exactly. And so then I just as I was coming my third visit, I told my wife, and so we prayed and fasted a lot, and we went ahead and volunteered. We accepted the assignment. No one else volunteered, by the way. It was just us. But there were so many confirmations. I would think of any major decision in our life, there were more confirmations on this through prophetic words. Jill Austin, our good friend as well, and
I just realized you had such a good connection with Jill. That's awesome. Because she was a real amazing woman.
Oh, I'd never met anyone quite like Jill. She was amazing, and so many confirmations that we were meant to come here. We came in 1999 because of budget reasons. They decided not to do it, but in 2000, I remember in May of 2000, then president of CBN, Michael Little, put his hand on my shoulder on the third floor of the CSB building, and he said, "Get ready to go." Wow. And so we were here on August 17th, 2000. Liz, Philip came a couple of weeks later, but my other daughters, Kathleen and Grace, came, and then 5 weeks later, what's called the Second Intifada began.
Yes, the Intifada. That was when the craziness happened.
Oh, for about 3 to 4 years, there was suicide bombings, terror attacks, shootings.
And this is before the wall had been built.
Exactly. Yeah. And the wall, really prevented a lot of those attacks. But there was a period there that was very intense.
I can remember I could remember hearing just about every week you'd hear about a suicide bomber in Jerusalem.
On a daily basis sometimes. It was
crazy.
Yeah, very intense. And all of these attacks took place near home, school, and work. Kathleen was the closest one to a bus bombing.
My gosh! Oh my gosh! That happened while you were here, because that was That's probably the most intense time for people living in Jerusalem. Hey,
exactly.
That there's been in the last 10, 15 years.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we all went through.
Oh my gosh!
And somebody asked me
the IDF were trying to find out who was doing it, and the Intifada meant that there was trying to squash that down or trying to get rid of that.
Right.
But how do you do that?
Well, the wall has helped a lot.
I mean, that's
it's controversial, but it's actually saved lives, and really for my own family's protection.
Well, after that, all of a sudden it stopped, and it was when they built the wall. There's nothing in the news. No more suicide bombings.
Yeah.
I mean, very rare.
Yeah, and somebody asked me the other day, did you and your wife have a conversation? Is it time to go? We never did, and looking back, I just felt
that's significant.
Yeah, we just felt like God had called us, and He would take care of us, and not only take care of Liz and I. And I know you know this as a dad. Take care of your kids.
Oh yeah.
And I had at a time in 1998, even before we came here, when I knew this was a possibility, I really felt led by the Lord to put Philip, Kathleen, and Grace, my 3 kids, on His altar, and I had never had that unction to do that, something like that. But as I did it, and it was very hard, with but with the help of the Holy Spirit, I was able to sort of release them. And when I released them, I just felt, and it was sort of like Abraham offering up Isaac.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and so in a spiritual sense, I'm sort of giving my children back to Him. And when I sort of felt that release, I just felt this fierce love, and that was the word that came to me, fierce, His passionate love that He had for them. I knew that in my mind, but now I could feel it in my heart. And and so when the bombs started going off, and that was like an anchor in our soul, that He would not only take care of Liz and I, but our kids. And it was sort of like living out Psalm 91, that He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty.
Yes.
And even with the danger, if you know that's where God has you and God has your loved ones, He'll watch over you.
Yeah. Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was an amazing time. It was a special.
How long did that last for?
It lasted about almost 4 years.
Gosh.
The last major bombing was on February, I believe, was 2nd or 22nd, 2004. It was a Sunday morning. I was making myself breakfast. I was having scrambled eggs, bacon bits in the scrambled eggs.
Come on, very unkosher.
I know it's very unkosher, but
but someone has to do it.
And I had some toast, and I was making myself breakfast. It was a kind of a breezy, a lot of wind that day. It was a bright, sunny day, but there was a lot of wind. And all of a sudden, I heard I heard noise.
Bit like today.
Yeah, and I thought maybe something had blown over. A few minutes later, a friend of mine called and it told me about the bombing, and it was just probably about 4 or 5 blocks from where we were. I went down there and covered that for CBN News, and I think 8 people died on that particular. It was horrific, and so
On a bus, was it?
it was a bus. It was a bus bombing. My daughter, Kathleen, at the time, was having a slumber party, was sound asleep during all of that, and she woke up. See, I ran out and left my breakfast on the counter. So she came down and she saw the meal. She thought I got raptured. So
That's hilarious.
yeah. But that was
That-
that was
that's
just
been taken-
indicative of I guess the last kind of major terror attacks. Tragically, 8 people died in that.
But that's
Yeah.
it's so interesting that it's almost like you came to, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, to be with Israel in its
Yeah.
toughest time.
Yeah.
In this, or in even Jerusalem in its toughest time.
Right.
It seemed like in this modern era,
No, I understand. It's almost like we were wedded.
a
in
solidarity.
sense.
That's the word I'm thinking
Yeah,
of. You
yeah,
always have a solidarity with the place because you walked through that.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
almost like there's an authority with you to walk through the scary time
Yeah, yeah.
of this city and of these people,
Right.
and you didn't shy away. You came just when it started up.
Yeah.
It seems to me that's the Lord's timing.
I would agree. I guess I know when I tell some Jewish people, when did you get here? And I tell them, and they those that
They
have
know
walked
the
through that,
dates,
they know
probably.
it. Yeah, they do know that.
And so when you tell them, they go, "Oh,
Yeah,
you were here through that whole
yeah,
thing."
yeah. And I think in a bigger sense that during that time, it was not only myself but many other evangelical Christians came here during that time. They were the one group I think that would keep coming as tourists, and a lot of Israelis recognize that evangelical Christians are willing to support us in our difficult times and stand with us.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was something. And Nathan, it's been a real privilege, not only during that time, but throughout this last 18 years. I mean, we were here, what's called the disengagement, 2005, when maybe almost 10,000.
Yeah, this was the Gaza, when Gaza was
Right.
handed back.
Exactly.
And there was a lot of Jewish people. This is the land of the Philistines we're talking about, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's so
Samson.
funny. This is the Philistines.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So a lot of Jewish people had settled inside
That's right.
Gaza,
Mhm.
and the Israeli government, just to clarify,
Yeah.
the Israeli government said, no, we've got to get out, we're going to hand
Yeah.
it back.
Exactly. The idea was that there were 21 Jewish communities, maybe about 9,000 Jewish people that lived there. That
That's
had,
a lot, 21 communities?
Oh yeah. And they had developed farming and agriculture. They were exporting flowers and to Europe. They were producing produce for Israel and other places, hiring a lot of Palestinians at the time. And the idea was, okay, we'll get out of Gaza. We'll allow the Palestinian Authority to take complete control of it, and then there'll be presumably quiet and peace. What happened is that 2 years later, the Palestinian Authority was overthrown by Hamas. Hamas took over, and what has come since then has been thousands of rockets from
Every day, hasn't there?
many times. Yeah, sometimes they're more or less, and because of that, there's been 3 wars. One in 2008-9, one in 2012, the other in 2014.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, all have different names. One is Operation Protective Edge, but it's been a really difficult time for Israel to deal with. All these rockets. There's terror tunnels. There's riots been going on for the last several months. Very difficult for Israel to deal with this with a group dedicated to the destruction of Israel.
Yeah. Have you been down there to cover those?
Yeah, we've been down there on the border. We've been right down with the IDF, very close to the riots themselves. And what we found out, and I think some of the media hasn't reported on the extent to which the IDF goes to prevent any harm coming to Palestinians. First of all, they send leaflets and they say, please stay away from the border. Then when the day comes that when these riots are planned, they get on a megaphone and they say, please stay away from the border. Keep your women and children away. If they come closer, they do tear gas and to try to keep keep people away. If that fails, there's warning shots. If that fails, they will shoot to wound. If that fails, they'll use lethal means. But there's a whole series of steps that the IDF takes to prevent any harm to Palestinians. On the other hand, they're there to protect Israeli civilians that are sometimes just a few hundred yards away or meters from the border. And so they do that to protect them. So, and it's not just, quote, peaceful riots or there's Molotov cocktails, there's shootings, there's grenades, there's improvised explosive devices. They try to cut through the wires. So a lot of attempts to try to infiltrate into Israel, and they try to prevent that. But that's one example of some of the things that Israel has to deal with on a daily basis sometimes.
Gosh. Yeah. And so you were down there reporting on that?
Yeah, we were down there. We were with the IDF and got to see that firsthand. And so that's some of the things that are happening. The other things that are happening, Nathan, prophecies unfolding before our very eyes.
It's a bit. We've been doing a few podcasts, and a lot of stuff's been talked about. There's prophecies happening. Yeah. One
thing I like is we did an interview with somebody, a book called Israel Rising, about Ezekiel. I want to get the right chapter. I think it's 37, but it talks about how the Jewish people come back here and the mountains will blossom and the desert will bloom. And what they did is that they took pictures from the late 1800s to 1940, these black and white pictures, and they went back to the very same spot, took a picture from the very same angle and color, and just saw the difference of what happens as the Jewish people have come back here to the land, the promised land of the Jewish people. And it's amazing to see the growth, the flourishing of the desert, the growth of the cities.
I know, it's quite miraculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Really is. Wow. Yeah, we see it right now. I mean, you can see it out in the windows we're looking at right now.
It's such a beautiful country. Yeah. Both Jordan and I have been driving around thinking, we want to live here. Hey, but listen, have you ever, talking about people you've interviewed, have you ever interviewed Netanyahu?
Yes, we have. It's been many years, but it was a long time ago.
All right, before he was...
Actually, I think it was before he was prime minister. Actually, it was probably after he was prime minister for the first time. But we have been in many events with him as he speaks to different groups, and so
that's a tough job he's got, eh?
Oh, he did. Probably maybe one of the toughest in the world.
That's what I was thinking.
We were there just a couple of days ago. He was addressing Christian media from around the world, journalists that had come from maybe 30 nations or so, and he came to address them. So we saw that, and he talked about the responsibility of journalists. To be telling the truth, and that was his encouragement or exhortation to that. And then also at that meeting was
which you've been doing for the last 18 years.
Well, that's 30 years. That's what we strive to do.
Yeah.
And also at that meeting was the American ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, and he made a very interesting statement. He said, as an Orthodox Jew, he's an observant Jew, but he said he appreciates some of the concepts in the New Testament. And he said one of the most inspiring to him was John 8:32, that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Wow. And that in the context of reporting from Israel is...
and telling the truth and supporting Netanyahu's exhortation. That's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good.
Oh my gosh. Now listen, tell me, what are some of your other, I'm just checking the time here, we're almost out of time. We've got some important dates happening in a minute. Tell me just quickly, what are some of your favourite people you've interviewed over the time?
I think some of the most inspiring people are, in the last year or two, there's been something called the Good Neighbor Project from Israel, where the Syrian civil war that began in March of 2011.
Gosh, it's been that long?
Oh, it has been that long.
That's 7 years?
Yeah. One of the most horrific
still going
wars in history, because almost 500,000 people have died, 11 million have been either displaced internally or refugees.
I have been living in Glendale, in my suburb in LA.
No kidding.
When I was moved to Glendale, they moved in next door. Yeah, we've left Syria.
Right.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, as part of that, what the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, has done is set up a hospital to help Syrians that have been wounded in that civil war. So they've allowed more than 5,000 Syrians to come in here to get medical attention. Some of these are probably Israel's enemies. Wow. And yet they're going ahead and treating them. As part of that, there is a wonderful ministry called Frontier Alliance International, headed by Dalton Thomas. He's worked with a former Lieutenant Colonel, Marco Moreno, and what they've done is that they collaborated. Maybe that's not the wrong word, but they had people on the other side of the fence, this in the inside Syria, where they would allow Christian medical personnel to come in and go ahead and actually operate in these makeshift hospitals to help some of the Syrian rebels fighting against the Assad regime.
Like MASH. Like
Exactly, just like MASH, but much more primitive, much more crude,
I bet.
with the kind of
my
medical
gosh.
facilities they had. But what struck me so much was that they knew they were going and they may never come back. And they did it because of the love of Jesus. They wanted to demonstrate the love of Jesus. And I remember, too, we interviewed Debbie Dennison and Dr. Peggy. And they knew that they wanted to they were going in, but they actually had to make arrangements. What would they would do to the body if they died? But they gave
They actually had to have a death plan.
exactly, and to quote Abraham Lincoln for the Gettysburg Address, they were willing to give the last full measure of devotion to the Lord for that. And those kind of people are just so inspiring. Another one is a man named Dave Eubank. Just a remarkable man. If you want to Google Free Burma Rangers, he's a former U.S. Army Ranger that grew up in Burma, Myanmar, and he felt led to come to northern Iraq to help the Kurdish military in their time of need, and he just risked his life to show the love of God to the Kurdish military, the Kurdish people, but also the Iraqi people that many times were just captured by ISIS. This is probably the most notable thing that he did, because this video went viral. When ISIS was being, when the city of Mosul was being attacked by the Iraqi army to take it back, liberate it from ISIS.
Yes.
There was actually killing zones where people would flee ISIS, but ISIS would try to shoot the people and kill the people that were leaving them and trying to escape. And so there were zones where people were literally caught in the crossfire. In one of these zones, dozens of people had been killed. But in the midst of it, there was a 6-year-old Iraqi girl that was still alive. So they decided to go rescue her. But they had to do it knowing that ISIS could kill them at any moment. So they collaborated with the Iraqi army. The Iraqi army brought a big M1 Abrams tank up. The U.S. Army put in smoke so they could cloud the area. But still, Dave Eubank had to run from the safety of the tank out and grab that little 6-year-old girl, knowing that ISIS was after them. So the video goes like this. Dave starts running. 2 of his associates start shooting to cover him. And it took 12 seconds for Dave to go out, grab that girl, and get back to the safety behind the tank. And to me, that was like 12 seconds of love, because he was asked, why did you do it? He says, because of God's love. Wow. And he said, if there's anything that you're afraid to do, then ask God for the love, because the love kind of can overwhelm the fear. And so those are the kind of human interest. I mean, like a Dave Eubank or Dr. Peggy, they risk their lives for the gospel here in some of the most dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Those are the people that it's a privilege to report on. Those are the people that really inspire me. And it's happening. It happens here in the Middle East. And the other thing is that, there's a revival of Muslims coming to faith in Jesus many times through dreams and visions. And I think that's
that's crazy.
An extraordinary story.
So many testimonies of that happening.
Yeah. We were sitting around at a dining table in Erbil, in Kurdistan, and 5 Iranians, or actually there were 5 Iranians, 4 had just come in from Iran for a Bible study, for discipleship for 3 days, because they had come to faith inside Iran. And we had the privilege to sit around the table. And first of all, they were telling about how oppressive it is inside Iran because of the religious mullahs and the things they have to do, the hijabs they have to wear, and the danger they have to exposing their faith. But 4 out of the 5 came to faith by a dream. and seeing Jesus. And the other one came to faith because she wanted to get a Bible. She got a Bible and she came to faith that way. And those are just some of the extraordinary stories of, faith under fire, the people living out their faith, believing in Jesus, Jesus appearing to them.
So
these
powerful.
are just some amazing things that are
I
happening.
mean, it's the testimony, isn't it?
It is,
You
yeah.
overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony.
That's right. That's right.
And
Yeah.
you get the privilege of covering these amazing stories.
It is. It really. It's a privilege and it's inspiring, and that's what we like to do, and the kind of stories we like to share.
Chris, how do people watch CBN? How can they hear these stories?
Mm-hmm.
Is it only live to air TV in the US? Is there an internet? Can people
Yeah,
get to the website?
sure. There's a variety of ways. CBN News has just begun a new CBN News channel that's in the United States.
Can I get it on an app? Is there an app on
you
my
can get it on your app. CBN News
on my Apple
You
TV?
can get it on your phone. Yeah,
and Apple TV too?
Apple TV, I believe it is. I think it's on
gotta
Roku as
get it.
well.
Come on.
That's one thing.
So listen to that, guys. Download the app.
Yeah. And CBN has live programming
On their website.
on their website, exactly. And so you have a variety of shows. Christian World News, Jerusalem Dateline. I'll tell you more about that. 700 Club is on that. They have a prayer link, a story about actually people praying for what's happening in the news.
Wow.
And so that's a variety of programming. So you can get on CBN News Channel. You can get it on CBNnews.com. You can get 700 Club on CBN.com. We produce a weekly program here called Jerusalem Dateline. You can get on JerusalemDateline.com.
Okay, so it's got its own website. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's
Awesome.
one of the shows on CBNnews.com. You can get that.
Can you subscribe?
You can.
Snap. Did we just say that at the same time? I think we did.
You can subscribe. Yep. So you can get it on your inbox every day.
But how do you subscribe? Just on the website? Because I want
Go to the website.
I want to subscribe to that.
JerusalemDateline.com, and you can
Because when you're not too tech savvy, to have it just pop up in your box. Oh, there it is. Right
Yeah,
there. Click on it
exactly.
rather than I've got to search for it and remember.
That's the ideal way.
Yeah.
Get it
If you-
every week.
If you want
yeah.
it, subscribe. Yeah.
And we do shows, stories that are happening here. For example, this week, and I don't know when your podcast is going to air, but we're doing a story on the Alita, which is a Swedish ship, a ministry that came here right on their 100-foot boat, more than 100-foot boat. They have Sailing for Jesus. They came here to show support for the Jewish people and to say that we love you, and also to raise awareness for persecuted Christians. We have a story about the ambassador from Guatemala, the second nation to move their embassy to Jerusalem. He's a believer. He's a former CBN regional director for Latin America. His name is Mario Bocaro. So we have a story about that. And we have an interview by George Thomas of CBN News with Andrew and Noreen Brunson, who was arrested by Turkey, kept in captivity
yes.
more than 2 years. And an interview about how they survived that ordeal. And so kind of stories we do. And it's a privilege to be able to tell these kind of stories for people around the world. We want people to be like the sons of Issachar, who understood the times and knew what Israel should do.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of stories we like to tell.
Oh, Chris, thank you. Thank you for giving your life for the sake of the gospel in this context of CBN, of risking your life and, coming out here during that time. I just think it's your life as well. You are one of those amazing people that you think you've interviewed amazing people. You're one of those amazing people too. And I just want to thank you. And the body of Christ thanks you for your service to us, to let us know, to tell these stories. And yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, it's great to be with you. It's a privilege. One of the things, probably the most tender words from the Lord I've ever received was a lady praying for me from Egypt, by the way. And she said, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect, well, the Lord is pleased because you've come here and you've let and while your hair has turned gray. And it just touched me that it has turned gray, not necessarily because of all the things happening, but life takes over. And but it was just so tender that
it's a sign that you've given your life for a large season.
Yeah.
You've given it unto the Lord for this purpose and this cause and unto Him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the bottom line, isn't it? That's unto Him.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, we're out of time, so we better wrap up and let you. But yeah, So good to see you again.
Yeah, great
Thanks
to
for
see you,
coming on
Nathan.
Iris After
Yeah.
Hours.
Yeah.
And we're going to watch CBN, guys. Look up those websites. What's the Jerusalem one again?
JerusalemDateline.com.
Come on, subscribe to JerusalemDateline.com.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you for watching. Chris Mitchell, thank you.
You want to pray?
Yes, and we're praying. I would love you to pray.
Yeah.
And just, you want to release anything you feel to pray over our
Sure.
audience? Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, Father, Lord, I just thank you for this opportunity to be with Nathan. I thank you again for Heidi and Roland and the whole team down there for all the work that they do to bring the light of the gospel to dark places, wherever it might be. And Lord, I just want to bless each and every one listening to this podcast or watching it, that you would bless them from the city of the great King,
Yes.
the city that you call your own, Father. Lord, you have a special calling on this place. It's just so profound. It's just so eternal. You chose this place for Abraham to come and sacrifice his son Isaac. This was the city David established as Israel's capital. This is the place, Jesus, you came and wept over. This is the city where you chose to willingly die, be buried, and rise again.
Thank you, Jesus.
And the city you're coming back to.
Whoa.
So, Lord, I just pray for each and every one that you would bless them from here,
Yes.
and that they would fulfill their purpose, their plan for such a time as this. Lord, each one of us is going to stand before you one day.
Yeah.
And we want you to be able to say to us, well done, good and faithful servants. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So I just pray that for Nathan. I pray that for all of ISIS. I pray that for everybody listening. Help us be faithful, Father, until the very end for the calling that you have for us, for what you called us to do. And give us your grace to do that, to accomplish that. And Lord, let us do it with joy. Let the joy of the Lord be our strength. And so we give you the praise, the glory, and the honor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Come on. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What a prayer. Woo. So guys, thank you for watching. Leave some comments below. We love you. We bless you. Download the Iris Global app so you can watch these podcasts, and keep on watching because we're still in Israel and we're still shooting some more. So love you guys. We'll see you next week for another podcast. Ciao. This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.